So what if you were told that you could deploy an unlimited number of smart contracts all from a single contract? That sounds powerful, right? That's exactly what deployer contract does. Welcome back to another episode of my Let's Get Soroban series. In today's episode, we'll talk about factory contract, also known as deployer contract. Whether you are launching a smart contract or deploying a token, a factory contract, also known as a deployer contract, can help scale this process. Join me while we explore how it's been done on Soroban and also how you as a Soroban developer can create and deploy your own deployer contract. Let's get Soroban. Like I said earlier on, deployer is more of like a factory contract, right? It's more of like deploying a copy of a contract somewhere. If you have watched my previous video, you will notice that I talked about constructor, how constructor being used on Stellar blockchain and Soroban network, and this was the contract to root for our constructor. If you don't know how this contract works, you're free to go back to the video. You can just click on it. So this is the constructor contract. And since we have this as a copy of, this is the contract that we want everybody to be able to like call and have a copy of. So when they call this contract, they'll be able to have a copy of this constructor contract, right? So, and this is the other contract. This is our factory contract. This is what we're going to save as a factory contract in Soroban network. So how this works is that, first of all, we name the contract, right? This is the contract. We name it factory, or you name it deployer, or anything you want to name it. And then how it works again is that, okay, we have a constructor. This constructor is going to do is that once this our factory contract is being deployed, automatically it sets an address. So we want to have like an admin address that assists in deploying multiple instances of our contract to root, our getter contract to root, which is that our constructor contract to root. So there's this first function is something you have to take note of. So you can see that what this has here is it has the env, which is a constant. It has the wasm hash. This wasm hash is the wasm hash of our contract. We're having a copy of our first contract, which is this contract, our constructor contract, our getter contract. This is the wasm hash of that our constructor contract. And this is a sort. A sort is more of like a unique number that can just be used alongside to deploy the different instances of the contract. Then the constructor argument is the constructor argument of our main contract. Going back to the contract that I want to have different instances of, coming back here and clicking here, this is it. You will see that this has a constructor and it has an argument, right? An argument of counter. So meaning that whoever it is that's going to call this contract, the person is going to set the counter on deployment. They're going to put in whoever is calling the function. If I'm calling the function, I put in a number to set the counter. So if I come here and deploy a copy for myself, I will end up having a counter argument. So that's what it means. So in our factory contract, meaning that whenever we're calling our factory contract, we're going to pass in a constructor argument that's going to be deployed, right? So if our main contract doesn't have a constructor argument, then we can easily remove this one. So like I said, this our factory contract has an admin, right? So we're setting an admin on deployment. So what we're going to do is just to check if we're going to require auth of the admin is going to be set on deployment. And we're also going to, this is the main function that deploys a copy. What it does is that using the deployer function in the SDK, in Soroban SDK, it's the deployer function in Soroban SDK that enables someone to deploy multiple instances of the contract. Then it's actually deploying it with the contract address and the sorts, unique sorts that we are deploying it with. And not only that, it's also using the wasm hash and the constructor arguments that is being attached to that function. So that's what is used to deploy it. So when we just compile this code now, compile the code base, you see that okay, everything is working fine. So let me compile this. Stellar contracts build. So it ran fine. You can see that we have it working fine in here. Working fine in here. It's run. There's no issue. Everything's working fine. So it's very easy. So moving forward, this is our test. So what this does is that since we need a WASM hash to be able to interact with the contract, to deploy an instance of the contract. So we're just going to use this to just get the. I did the same thing when I was working with the cross contract calls, whereby we need to call a contract. So I just called it here, and then this is how you be able to call a contract in your test. So we just have to use a mode to get the WASM hash of the WASM code of this. So we've gotten this. The next thing we want to do, of course, generate an admin address, a default admin address, and set our env file. Then the next thing we want to do is, okay, our factory contract, right? We need the client of our factory contract to be able to react and interact with it, and this is how exactly it's been set. And then the next thing we want to do is that, okay, we want to get the WASM hash of our contract we are interacting with. This is how we're calling our contract in here. But if you don't know how to make a cross contract calls, you're free to just check my previous video and you'll see how I made a cross contract calls. So since we're able to call the contract in here, the next thing we did, we just set the WASM code, the WASM here, so we can get we uploaded it, and we deployed it, and we got the WASM hash on our test though. And we just set a random number. You have to be between 32 bytes. So that's what we just set it. We set it here. And for our constructor argument, since we needed to set our counter, we set a constructor argument of 5. Unit 5. And then we have to remove all authorization, and we have to bypass the authorization aspect. And so we're done with that. Next thing we did was that, okay, we had to deploy our contract. So we deploy our factory contract, which is this one we did in here. We deployed it with the constructor argument. So what this does is that it just creates an authentication structure that it will ensure that contract is being authorized. And then when this is being created, when the structure is being created, we don't have to require that, okay, the authentication we have, it's equal to this, right? So this has been make sure that it's equal to this. And the next thing we want to do is that, okay, now that we're sure that our contract has been deployed and we have a copy of what we deploy, we want to call want to set a client for our new contract, and want to invoke our new contract, and also call our increment contract. So this is us setting a client for a new contract. And then if we look in here, you see that the function we have in this our contract in here, as the copy is being deployed, the function we have there, we have one of the functions called increment, which is this increment. So now that we're sure that, okay, we've deployed the copy, we want to test that, okay, this is working fine. And this is where you see this, that you test it, okay, you increment it, this is working fine. And then you get the counter, the now counter, which is this. Remember that the constructor argument, it was deployed with a counter argument of 5, right? So now after we incremented this function, we are sure that, okay, yeah, this worked fine. To be sure that it worked fine, that's when we get the counter and we found out, okay, yeah, it's showing 6. So that's how it works. So now let's run our test to make sure that our test is working fine. So on running this, you can see that, okay, it's worked fine. So what we want to do, you can first of all either come here and follow the steps to deploy, or you can also follow along with me, and let's deploy this thing together. What we want to do is to install a copy of our main contract, the contract which is going to have different instances of, which is this contract in here. So we just have to first of all come here and copy this command. I'm going to attach all these commands to my readme. You can check the GitHub attached to this video and you see this. So from here you can see that we have seller contract installed, my source account already set to pro, and then WASM, then contract. So to get this WASM code, you can just quickly come here and go to your targets and go to your WASM release, scroll down so you can see this is a WASM code. So you can copy it and paste it in here. Then you can see the network you're deploying, you're installing to the testnet. So on doing this, just run this command. So you can see that it worked fine, and it gave us a hash. So we just have to just copy this hash here, and then paste it here. We use it later. And the next we want to do is also install the factory contract. I already have my command already, so I just have to come here and copy this command and then paste it here. make sure to replace the wasm hash with the factory contract or the deployer contract you are using, and also set your network and also the source account and also your network. So I'm clicking this. Yeah, you can see that it has installed as well. So now the next thing we want to do now is to copy. Let's go and copy this. Let's copy this and then place it as well. Come here. This is the hash of the factory contract. We place this in here as well. So now I want to deploy our factory contract. So come and copy this. Come back in here. Paste this. You can see. Make sure that we're actually deploying with the wasm hash. So this hash is going to be the wasm hash of the factory contract we installed on the blockchain. So just like copying this one in here, then making sure you replace it with this. Get says pro account, and you can find that from this contract, our factory contract, it requires me using a constructor argument of the admin address. So that's why I'm setting the admin address to myself in here. So running this, we have this now. So now you can see that our contract work was also deployed our factory contract on the testnet. So let's invoke our contract. So what we're going to do is that deployed our factory contract, right? We have a copy of this contract, and now using this contract that we already deployed, we want to invoke this contract in here. This copy, this our main contract. Want to invoke this contract. So now that I've deployed this factory contract, we want to interact with we want to deploy this contract as well. So using this deploy function, we're going to call this deploy function, filling in parameters, which means that we're invoking this our factory contract by calling this deploy function to fill in the parameters, so we can successfully deploy this contract as well, because this is the main contract that everybody's going to interact with, right? This is a factory contract. It's just more of like a warehouse that different copies of different copies of different contract can just be stored there. You get? So that's why we have to invoke this. So what I'm going to do now is just to come here and copy. I already have this here already. Copy this and keep it here. So what we have, you know, when we deploy this contract, when we deploy this contract, it gave us a contract ID. Sorry, it was a contract ID, which is this. So coming in here, you don't have to just like contract ID will place space in here. You change the contract ID in this place here. Then the wasm hash, this wasm hash is going to be the first wasm hash we got, which is going to be this wasm hash we got when we installed this first contract, because we end up installing this contract on the blockchain. We install this contract as well. So since we are going to invoke a copy of this main contract, we are going to be using the wasm hash of this contract right now when we're invoking the contract. So what we're going to do, like I said, because select contract invoke, we put in the contract ID of the main factory contract, the network, the testnet. Then we call this deploy function in here, which is this deploy function, and then we call in the wasm hash of this contract in here. You get? And then we put in the wasm hash, which is the parameter, first parameter. Second parameter is the source, which is any random number between byte 32, and then the constructor arguments of this our contract, which is, if you come in here, you check constructor arguments, you see that the constructor argument in here requires a counter of U32. That's why we put in a U32 of 5 in here. So we click on this, you see that it's going to work fine. It worked fine. So thanks so much for your time. Thank you for being here. See you on our next episode of Let's Get Soroban. Bye.